Hello, my name is Ken Spiro. I am the president and founder of SchoolSims. Delighted to welcome you again to the next in our YouTube series on the power of simulations and kind of the underpinnings of why we do what we do. And today I wanted to focus on the idea of teaching in the gray, really focusing on our educators and the challenge of teaching. And especially in this day and age where we're trying to prepare teachers to get into the classroom in an accelerated way. And at the same time, there are new things coming up that even for the experienced teachers, it's quite challenging. And the process continues to be one that is difficult to navigate. And really focusing on building confidence, wellness, and judgment when there are no easy answers. Obviously, the meaning behind teaching in the gray. So when we think about this idea of teaching, but also as being human, right? As humans, we have a certainty bias. This is something that's been well researched and documented, that humanity has that as one of the key biases and heuristics that affect us in our decision making and in our ongoing, and we need to attend to in the way we process information as we deal with it. And this idea of seeking certainty means that we get uncomfortable when, even when we have the best laid out plans, right? Unpredictable things happen and knock us off our game. And so the opportunity to become a great teacher or to have a great lesson depends not on our ability to stick to the plan, but our ability to exercise judgment and manage when things don't necessarily play out the way we expect them to do. And in the classrooms, there are very few perfect answers, right? Because you've got a classroom full of students, each one of them has unique needs. There are challenges in the content, there are challenges in the building, there are challenges from the community, et cetera. And so the uncertainty is always present. And so we need that opportunity to practice when things are not going to play out the way we expect. The idea of that certainty bias, really, it does pull us away, or it has us avoid the ambiguity to some degree, especially when we're kind of in the unconscious mode. It focuses on trying to pretend like there is certainty, and that can often come across as controlling, because when we try to exert control, that provides some perception of certainty and aligns with that bias. And so the opportunity that we're looking to be able to do is create the space in which we are more comfortable with the idea of uncertainty, and then allow for our more conscious mind to be able to exercise good judgment and manage and navigate as we progress. As an example, one of the things that's currently hot in schools is the role of AI, right? It's hot everywhere in terms of what's happening with artificial intelligence. And it's adding a whole new dimension to, or dimensions to, instruction for teachers in terms of how to use it, if at all, and the ethical questions that may come up as a result of that. And how do we define this idea of fairness or authorship, right? If students are using that to write, um, what happens? How do we then deal with that? And how do we get to that authenticity, or what we perceive as authenticity, right? We are stuck in where we were and trying to figure out where we're going. And within that, there's obviously a whole lot of uncertainty, and teachers are kind of really in the middle, but at the tip of the this challenge in terms of managing the implications of what's going to happen. And we're in a situation where some teachers bring it on, and other teachers are scared of it, just like the rest of humanity, in terms of not knowing necessarily what to do with this new technology and this new capability. And how do we then navigate even within this uncertainty and not having the answers, because we probably won't have answers for a while? How do we manage? And how do we then present ourselves in a way that still allows us to come across as not being in control per se, but being the teacher? Additional topics, obviously AI is one, but we have a variety of topics in our simulation library for teachers and obviously for leaders and counselors as well. But there's a whole lot of opportunities in which we need to be able to get comfortable with the idea of uncertainty so that we don't slip into that mode of control, or come across as that mode of control, and in terms of our being able to navigate. the implications go beyond just good teaching because it goes into our wellness. It goes into how we feel or how long teachers can risk getting into the pathway into burnout, right? The amount of mental energy that we need to exert in order to navigate uncertainty, right, creates a level of emotional fatigue. It increases our stress because of our feeling that we need to to present ourselves in a particular way, and the opportunity to avoid the fact that we avoid opportunities because of the uncertainty narrows our ability, narrows our confidence, and narrows our, in terms of being able to flex. And therefore we come across as a little bit more tired, or requires more energy to not come across that way. And that fatigue can decrease our wellness and ultimately have further implications, as we know. So when we talk about the idea of utilizing simulations to enable practice, to enable getting comfortable in the gray, if you will, they allow us to create the space, right? To present a context inside of which it feels real. It feels like it's our classroom, but it's not. And the opportunity to engage in the practice of making decisions, even when we know, we feel like this is a realistic situation, and yet there's no real risk on the other side. We can make mistakes so that we have the opportunity to reflect on what happened and then be able to process that in terms of building our experience portfolio, if you will, so that when we face these situations in real life, that we're drawing from more. We may not get it right, and that can't be the goal, because getting it right is sometimes not really an option, but we can do better. And so the opportunity to have that safe practice becomes critical, especially when you're going to continue to face new things. So the opportunity isn't to know how to practice doing something in particular, but it's to practice being able to respond even when the uncertain happens. And there's plenty of research about the opportunities to how do we build self-efficacy and how do we manage cognitive load? How do we build that? In fact, we did a webinar recently around the power of simulations and some research that we have been doing relating to how sims affect self-efficacy and cognitive load. And I refer you to our webinar page where you can watch a recording of that if you're interested. But simulations help just by virtue of the opportunity for practice to deal with, to make decisions, to experience consequences, to see that it's not the end of the world, right? When we get it wrong, things don't come to an end, right? There's the opportunity to course correct, or there's the opportunity to navigate. One of the things that come across with the opportunity for uncertainty, right? The uncertainty aversion, if you will, which is the flip side of the certainty bias, comes when you combine that with the negativity that bias that we have, right? We also have, as humans, a negativity bias that we're often having to work against. But when the uncertainty aversion combines with the negativity, we run the risk of catastrophizing. And that is something that can happen where, when we're in a darkish place, that we feel like the sky is falling, right? And the opportunities to be able to avert that is something that practice is going to help us to do, because we can, in essence, manage the uncertainty by realizing that we can manage, we can navigate. And that confidence grows from having done this, seeing what happens even when we get it wrong, and that we can manage through it and navigate. And so that's the opportunity with simulations. So when the opportunity with a simulation is to have the experience, and that's great, and that's really important. But one of the key elements that really brings this home is the opportunity for reflection, right? Without reflection, that learning opportunity can be lost. And so the simulation provides not only the opportunity for the experience, but also the reflection. Even when you're doing it on your own, then that opportunity to get a feedback report on everything that was going on and why things happened the way they happened in this particular context, which invites you to think about, well, what would be different in my classroom? And again, being able to envision navigating even when that uncertainty is present. When you combine that in a synchronous way, when you're able to hear and process with colleagues, with fellow teachers or fellow candidates the opportunity to see not only your own experience and benefit from the insights from that, but to hear from others who process things differently with other ways of thought, with other ways of processing, with other approaches. All of a sudden, that expands and makes us feel a lot more comfortable. In addition to realizing that we're not alone, right? The de-isolation process, the removal of or the reduction of the loneliness that can happen when you are at the tip of the spear, so to speak, in the classroom. You are there, it is a lonely position, and you realize that you're not alone. And even when you're doing things asynchronously, the opportunity to be part of a community that has had this shared experience allows for that process of collaboration, team, and again, helping with that issue of wellness. Uncertainty will always be part of teaching and learning, right? Because we are always changing. Content is sometimes evolving. Certainly, technologies are evolving. Students are often going to be ahead of us in terms of as teachers, right? The younger generation is often more adaptive in terms of dealing with new tools, new technologies, new capabilities, and they're going to push buttons. That's what kids do. And so the opportunity to manage and navigate and be able to bring our expertise out and not have it pushed down because of the uncertainty that we're feeling. This is an opportunity that simulations are designed to help with because they provide that opportunity for structured practice, an opportunity for that reflection, be able to embrace the idea of uncertainty and how we can often push back on students to get them thinking. We may not have the answers, and students may expect us to have the answers, but sometimes we can turn that around and talk it through with the students and still come across as the teachers because that's what we're doing. We're teaching. And this gives us the opportunity to experience the gray, to feel a little bit more confident in our capability, build our resilience, and still be able to manage our classrooms and teach with confidence. Thanks for attending for today. Again, this is Ken Spiro. Happy to be in touch with you about any thoughts or feedback that you have on this edition of our series. And if you have additional ideas that you'd like to hear about, please reach out. We'd love to hear about them, and I would love to be able to respond. And if you have ideas about additional topics for simulations, would love to hear about that as well. So thank you again for listening to this, and I look forward to being in touch soon. Take care.